She's silent, but you feel her presence like a shadow you can't outrun, and the part you don't want to admit is this. Her silence hurts more than anything she ever said out loud, because silence doesn't give you answers. It gives you questions that cut deeper than truth. You keep asking yourself why she vanished, why she stopped talking, why she pulled away like she never cared. Yet somehow, you still feel her watching. And the reason she's watching you now is far more psychological than you think. Men always assume silence means she's done, that she's moved on, that you were just a chapter she closed without hesitation. But women rarely disappear cleanly. Even when she walks away, even when she blocks you, even when she pretends you're irrelevant, there is a part of her that stays tethered to the history she had with you. And that tether is what she's trying to suffocate with silence. Because silence is her last attempt at controlling a story that no longer feels under her control. What you don't realize is that when a woman goes quiet, she's not acting from strength. She's acting from conflict. She's torn between wanting to be done and wanting to see whether you crumble without her. And whether she admits it or not, your reaction matters. Your next move matters. Your energy matters. She's watching because she needs to know one thing she'll never say out loud. Did she lose a good man? Or did she avoid a lifetime of regret? A woman's silence is never random. It's a test of her own emotions, not yours. She wants to see if her absence hits you deeper than her presence ever did. She wants to see if you chase, if you question yourself, if you spiral into the confusion she created, or if you rise above it in a way she didn't expect. Because when a man stands strong in the middle of uncertainty, it triggers a psychological shift she can't hide from. It forces her to confront the truth she tried to avoid when she walked away. She's silent because it gives her power, temporary power. The kind of power people use when they feel something slipping away. And trust me, she feels it slipping. She feels the distance. She feels the possibility that you might wake up one morning and realize you never needed her as much as she thought you did. Silence becomes her shield. But shields aren't used by people who feel safe. They're used by people who feel threatened. Maybe she's dating someone else. Maybe she's moving on. Maybe she's pretending her life is suddenly perfect. But the reason she's still watching you is simple. She needs to measure the impact she left behind. She needs to confirm that she mattered, that she was unforgettable, that she wasn't just another woman you could replace without hesitation. Because deep down, even the strongest, most independent woman fears being forgettable to the man she once cared about. Your growth terrifies her more than your pain ever did. If she sees you leveling up, healing, getting sharper, more focused, more disciplined, more in your purpose, it forces her to confront the reality that losing you wasn't just a moment, it was a consequence. Women check up the hardest on the men they didn't appreciate enough, the men they pushed away too confidently, the men they underestimated, and when she watches you from the shadows of silence, she's not checking on your life. She's checking on her decision. You were never supposed to know this, but here is the truth. The quieter she gets, the louder her curiosity becomes. And the more silent she is, the more she's hoping you don't become the man she regrets losing. There's a moment every man experiences, but never talks about. The moment when you realize her silence isn't an accident, it's intentional. She's not too busy, she's not distracted, she's not just giving space. No, she's studying you. She's analyzing your behavior without giving you any access to hers. And that creates a psychological imbalance where she feels safe watching from a distance, while you're left wondering what shifted inside her. But here's the truth she'll never say out loud. Silence lets her observe you without risking vulnerability. Women observe differently than men. Where men watch actions, women watch patterns. They look for the small cracks in your confidence, the subtle changes in your mood, the energy you carry in your posts, the strength or weakness in your silence. And if you think she isn't noticing, you're wrong. She's noticing everything. Women always notice everything, especially when they've pulled back, because that's when the emotional microscope comes out. She wants to see if you'll break your discipline. She wants to see if you'll chase her when she steps back, if you'll doubt yourself, if you'll lose focus, if you'll betray the calm you pretend to have. She's silent, but she's watching with the intensity of someone who needs answers without asking the questions. It's her way of protecting her ego, her fears, and the image she wants to maintain, while still feeding the curiosity she can't silence. But the part she didn't plan for is this: silence gives you power too. And the moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who refuses to give it, everything shifts. Suddenly, you become unpredictable. You become the unknown variable. You become the question mark instead of the answer she assumed she already figured out. That's when the tables turn. Because women don't fear losing a man they understand. They fear losing the man they can't read anymore. And whether she wants to admit it or not, you becoming unreadable rattles her in ways she'll never confess. Women don't stalk the men they feel nothing for. They stalk the men they are conflicted about. The men they have unfinished emotional business with. The men who treated them better than they expected. The men whose absence leaves a louder imprint than their presence ever did. That's who she watches silently. That's who she keeps tabs on. That's who she can't delete fully. Her silence is not closure, it's surveillance. But here's the part that will surprise you. She's not just watching to see if you fall apart. Sometimes she's watching to see if you grow. If she sees you healing, focusing on your goals, rebuilding your life with strength, becoming a more disciplined version of the man she once knew, that hits her harder than any message you could send. Because growth forces reflection, and reflection forces her to face the real reason she went silent in the first place. Maybe she was afraid of how much she felt. Maybe she didn't want to look weak. Maybe she got validation from the idea that you'd always be available, always be affected, always be emotionally reachable. But when your life starts moving without her, something unfamiliar happens inside her, a quiet panic, a subtle fear, a realization that silence doesn't freeze you in place. It frees you to become someone she no longer has access to. You weren't supposed to know this, but women don't watch out of boredom. They watch out of emotional attachment, out of fear, out of ego, out of curiosity, out of regret, out of uncertainty. But they watch, especially when they go silent, because silence is their safest hiding place and their most dangerous strategy. She thinks living in the shadows gives her control. But the moment you stop looking for her in them, she's no longer the one in power. You are. There's something almost haunting about a woman who disappears but won't let go. You feel it in the quiet moments. That strange pull, that sense that she's still connected to you in ways she refuses to acknowledge. And the truth is, when a woman goes silent, she steps into a psychological game where she is both the observer and the one being observed, because silence doesn't just reveal you, it exposes her too. Not with words, but with behaviors she thinks you'll never notice. You see, when she stops talking, she creates an emotional vacuum. She expects you to fill it with worry, confusion, self-doubt. She expects you to chase. She expects you to prove your value, your desire, your loyalty. But what she never considers is that silence can just as easily push a man into evolution instead of desperation. And that's the part she never prepares for. Because when a man evolves in the dark, when he rises in the absence of a woman who thought he'd crumble, that's when her silence becomes her undoing. She wanted distance, but she didn't want to lose influence. She wanted control, but not consequences. She wanted to be missed, but not replaced. And that contradiction is exactly why she's still watching you. Because deep down, she needs to confirm that walking away didn't lower her value, and that you're still emotionally tied to her in a way she can quietly rely on. It's not always love. Sometimes it's validation. Sometimes it's ego. And sometimes it's regret wearing pride like armor. But here's where the psychology hits deeper. Women follow the emotional threads they leave behind. Even if they cut the connection out loud, they keep it alive inside their own thoughts. She replays conversations, she rewrites arguments, she romanticizes moments that felt ordinary at the time. And every time your name crosses her mind, she checks something: your profile, your status, your pictures, your progress. Not because she wants to come back, but because she wants to understand what she walked away from. She wants to know if the man she left is the same man you're becoming. Because women have this innate fear. The fear of realizing too late that they misjudged a man's potential, that they walked away from someone who would have eventually outgrown the version of himself she couldn't recognize. This fear is quiet. It hides beneath her pride, but it's powerful enough to keep her watching even when she swears she's done. But the irony is this: the more she watches, the more she exposes her own uncertainty. And when a woman is uncertain, silence becomes her shield. She can observe without being observed. She can care without admitting it. She can regret without confessing it. Silence lets her stay connected to your story without risking rejection, embarrassment, or vulnerability. But even her silence has limits, because eventually she sees something she wasn't prepared to see: your strength. She sees you getting sharper. She sees you improving your life. She sees you emotionally detaching, and that's when her silence starts working against her. Because the moment a man stops giving emotional reactions, he stops being predictable. And unpredictability is the one thing that steals a woman's sense of emotional control. Suddenly, she's not the one studying you. You're the one she can't decipher anymore. She can't tell if you still care. She can't tell if she still matters. She can't tell if she would even be welcome if she tried to come back. And that uncertainty, that's what keeps her watching more intensely than before. She went silent to keep the upper hand, not realizing silence can create a version of you she never expected: stronger, calmer, harder to access, and far more valuable than the man she once knew. The most unsettling truth about her silence is this: she didn't disappear because she stopped feeling something. She disappeared because she started feeling too much. It overwhelmed her, confused her, threatened the version of herself she was comfortable being. And instead of confronting those emotions, she retreated into the one place where she feels safe: distance. Because distance allows her to breathe without having to admit why she needed the oxygen in the first place. She's still watching you because silence gives her the illusion that she's in control of her feelings. If she doesn't text, she can pretend she's detached. If she doesn't show up, she can pretend she doesn't care. If she doesn't reach out, she can tell herself she's moved on. But the deeper reality is this: silence is her way of hiding from the emotional impact you had on her. And the more she hides, the more she feels the pull toward you, that quiet magnetic tension she thought she could escape. This is why she checks your stories at midnight, when her defenses are weakest. This is why she scrolls through your photos longer than she wants to admit. This is why she pays attention to who comments on your posts, who you interact with, who shows up in your world. She's not just watching your life, she's measuring her place in it. Or, more accurately, whether she still has one. But there's a deeper layer to this psychology, one most men never realize. Women don't just watch the man they miss. They watch the man they fear losing forever. Because once she senses that your life is moving forward, once she sees that you're not frozen by her silence, something shifts inside her. Doubt creeps in. Not the loud doubt that forces confrontation, but the silent kind that eats at her when she's alone. She wonders if she gave up too quickly. She wonders if she pushed the wrong buttons. She wonders if walking away was strength, or fear disguised as confidence. And that's why she stays silent, because silence lets her avoid the truth while still keeping proximity to the parts of you she can't fully release. She convinces herself that she's just curious, that she's just checking, that she's just seeing how you're doing. But those excuses crumble the moment she sees you smiling in a way she can't take credit for anymore. Here's the part she didn't expect. She thought silence would make you chase. Instead, it made you change. You became more focused, you became more disciplined, you became more selective with your energy. And that transformation is the one thing she can't ignore. Women don't chase perfection, they chase certainty. And when your life starts showing signs of stability, direction, and confidence, you become the kind of man whose presence is felt even in your absence. And that's the version of you she's watching now. The man who doesn't crumble, the man who doesn't beg, the man who doesn't fall into emotional traps, the man who can walk forward with dignity, even when someone walks away without explanation. She's silent because she wants to understand you from afar before deciding whether she should regret, return, or release. She's silent because silence allows her to maintain pride while still keeping her eyes on you. She's silent because admitting she still cares would mean admitting she lost control of the situation she created. But here's the truth she'll never say. The more she watches, the more she struggles, because she can feel the distance growing, and she's no longer sure if she can close it. You weren't supposed to know this, but her silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of her realization that she may have underestimated the man she thought she could let go of. There's a truth most men never hear, because women guard it like a secret they hope you never decode. When she goes silent, it's not because she's finished with you. It's because she's terrified of what acknowledging you would awaken inside her. Silence is her armor, her escape route, her emotional bandage. But here's what she didn't expect. Silence doesn't erase attraction. It intensifies it. It doesn't kill curiosity. It fuels it. It doesn't close the chapter. It keeps it wide open, suspended in a place she can't fully step out of. She's still watching you because part of her feels something unresolved, something unfinished, something she tried to bury but can't. She may pretend she's fine. She may pretend you never mattered. She may pretend her world didn't shift when you entered it. But her silence is the proof that she felt more than she was ready to admit. Because silence isn't indifference. Silence is emotional overflow she doesn't know how to manage. She checks your life not because she should, but because she can't stop herself. She wants to know if you're healing without her, if you're happier without her, if another woman has stepped into the space she abandoned. She wants to know whether the version of you she once doubted is becoming the version she secretly hoped you'd be. Because here's the paradox. She left to regain control. But watching you is how she tries to keep it. And you need to understand something deep, something men rarely grasp. Women don't reflect when they're talking. They reflect when they're silent. In silence, she replays the things she said, the things she didn't say, the moments she dismissed, the effort she overlooked, the attitude she gave, the softness she withheld. She replays everything you gave that she didn't appreciate at the time. And that replay becomes the very reason she can't fully walk away. She's still watching you because in her mind, she's trying to rewrite what already happened. She's trying to see if she misjudged you. She's trying to see if you were the stable one in a moment where she was emotionally chaotic. She's trying to see if the door she closed leads to a life she thought she wanted, or a mistake she'll feel months from now when her pride finally collapses under the weight of truth. But here's the irony that stings her the most. While she's hiding behind silence, you're stepping into a version of yourself she never expected. A version of yourself that grows sharper, stronger, wiser, more intentional. A man who doesn't need attention to feel valuable. A man who doesn't need closure to move forward. A man who doesn't crumble because someone went quiet. A man with direction, discipline, and self-respect. And that's the version she fears the most. The version of you she no longer has access to. You were never supposed to know this, but silence doesn't protect her from you. It exposes her to herself, because every time she watches you grow, every time she sees you leveling up, every time she realizes your world didn't end when she left, the truth hits her a little harder. She didn't walk away from a man who needed her. She walked away from a man who would eventually outgrow her. So now it's your turn to ask yourself the real question. Does her silence mean she still matters? Or is it simply revealing that you're becoming the man you are meant to be, with or without her? Before you go, I want to ask you something personal. If she's watching you in silence right now, what do you think she's hoping to see? Tell me your honest answer in the comments. And if this message hit you somewhere deep, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a man who needs to hear this tonight.